play water. Hi everybody, welcome to the second week of Empathy Radio. I'm Michael Herman.
I'm Emily Vetrano. This is Empathy Radio. Tune in to be heard.
We're so grateful that everyone's tuning in. We heard from you all last week and you said keep this going. So we're doing it again every Sunday at this time. Thank you so much for tuning in last week, for your comments. We got a lot of feedback during the show and a lot of feedback in the week after that the show is really meaningful to you and that it feels like, you know, you're a space for you to be heard and for all of us to share our stories at this time. We're actually right in the middle of Tech Week for the Empathy Project. We've been in 2 straight days of tech, virtual tech. How's it been?
Woo!
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been amazing.
Yes.
But it's also been just challenging. And the good news is, those of you who are planning to attend the Empathy Project live this Saturday, the 30th, wow, I cannot tell you how incredible the pieces that we've seen so far are from all of our artists and our writers. You are in for a real treat and a really, I think, important, transformative, feel-good experience.
Absolutely. And the innovation that has come from our artists that we've, been in production with is truly inspiring, and I think it will be really exciting as an audience member to see how they've uplifted these stories that we all sort of can connect to and say, again, maybe my experience isn't the same, but I understand that feeling. I empathize with that.
Yeah, so 5 more days or so until the Empathy Project live on Saturday. We actually, many of you have heard already, but if you haven't, so it's streaming live on Zoom, and we only are making available a total of 100 seats, 100 Zoom seats. We're currently at 91 seats have been reserved and sold. Donations have been made that reserve those seats. So we have 9 seats left for this show on Saturday. So, and this is not like marketing hype. This is real. Like, we have 9 seats left. So, and the way it works is we're taking donations. So they're donation-based tickets. And if you go to Eventbrite and you search the Empathy Project, you'll see the event. And the way it's listed there are several donation levels that you can give and reserve yourself a seat. But we do want to say that if anyone, we never want to shut people out of any experience, of any show that we do. So if you can't afford to give anything, shoot us an email, shoot us a message on social media, and we will make sure, if we have seats available left, money will not keep you from experiencing this.
No.
So please, if you're interested and you've been wanting to go and you don't have a ticket yet, I'm telling you, probably by tomorrow, 9 of these are going to be gone because like 30 of them went today. So, and we have a radio spot, I think, coming out later today, and then a TV spot coming out later this week. So they're going to go, and we want you there. But the really good news, if for some reason those 100 seats fill up, and you're not able to get in, this is just volume 1 of this, right?
You bet. Just the tip of the iceberg. We've got so much more coming, and it's also why we have this program every week is because we know there's a greater conversation to be had, and we want to continue that with you long after Volume 1, Volume 2, etc. And we do want to give a big shout out to Will LeDuc and Active Culture on River Rest Radio. Thank you, Will, for having us today. We had an incredible conversation with him, and we're so grateful to him and all the listeners for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a blast with Will on the radio today, live, which was just wow. So as Emily was saying, we were so overwhelmed with the number of stories that we received and continue to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And so 11 are going to be in Volume 1 this Saturday of the Empathy Project, and then next month, Volume 2, and the month after that, Volume 3.
Yeah.
But we have so many, and they're all incredible, and they're all worthy of being heard. So like we mentioned last week, we're going to, part of this show is reading one of those stories, us maybe discussing how it hit us, and then we really, really encourage you. Last week was cool. We had some awesome comments in the chat, and we had one caller that called in. So we really encourage you to call us, to call in after we read the story, and to either talk about the story or to share your own story and your own experience. And how that will work.
Yeah, how does
I
that
heard
work?
Emily saying in her head, "But Michael, how will that work?" So how that will work, because Emily was afraid I was going to forget that, which was, very, rational fear, if you know me. So how it will work. I forgot. Oh, right. So how it works is you are watching us, and obviously, and you in the chat, you're like, hey, I want to chat with you guys live on Zoom on Facebook, because that would be fun, and I really want to have a discussion with you about this. It's important to me. I have something to say. I want to share in the conversation.
Yes.
So you just drop a note, comment in the chat. Our stage manager, right, sitting over there,
Woo!
Rachel, right there.
Is
No,
it there?
It's there.
No,
It's
I'm
there.
here.
She's there. She's monitoring the chat, and she will shoot you the Zoom link to join the conversation live. And we would really, really love for you to do that.
I just want to give a shout out to Shane, who's watching right now.
Shane, we miss you. We love you. Congratulations on the new position with Troy Foundry Theater. Nice job.
Big love to our friends at Troy Foundry.
Big love to Troy Foundry. If you're in the upstate New York area, in the Troy, Albany area, and you get a chance to see a show by Troy Foundry, go. Because the work that they're doing, a few of us have been able to work with them on some of their projects and definitely seen them. You definitely are in for a treat if you can catch a Troy Foundry show. So cool. Should we read our story tonight and see how we feel that?
Yeah, let's
Cool.
go. So
Cool.
This story comes to us from Jessica Rourke in Oklahoma. When this pandemic started, I was an essential worker. Well, let me rephrase that. I was classified as an essential worker because I was a barista, and where I work is essential, and so therefore I was too. But somehow I had a hard time believing people getting their single shot extra hot skim milk latte in a double cup was essential. And yet, I showed up every day in my rubber gloves and apron and served panicked people coffee and heard their statistics that they just needed to share with another human being. Some of them were unbelievably kind, and others were all too eager to release their built-up fear and anger and confusion onto the scared woman behind the counter. My personal favorite was the man who came in every day to get a large chai, extra hot, with almond milk, and was wearing giant goggles and a face mask and would get angry with me for not wearing a face mask. This was back when the CDC was saying not to wear them. And then he would pay for his drink with cash in his bare hands. I totally understand that he was simply panicked and scared, and this was his way of taking precautions. But every time his bare hands put dirty cash in my gloved ones, I wanted to look at him and just say, yeah, okay, screw you and your extra hot almond milk chai. It's not essential, and you don't have a single grocery item with you. Go home. About 5 days into going to work every day during this pandemic, I had a panic attack in the employee bathroom. My aunt had been diagnosed with COVID, and I was checking a text from my family about this, and my supervisor shamed me for being on the phone. Big time. And yes, I totally know how it looked. The employee on her phone during her shift, I get it. And I should have just explained what was going on, but instead I felt my chest close up and my neck get hot, and the next thing I knew I was sob heaving over a sink in the bathroom. And after that day, crying or panicking at work became the norm. A customer would yell at me and say things like, "Oh, you're getting me heated now," and I would cry. My supervisor would get angry with me for not understanding something, and I would panic in the bathroom. I would forget to put on a fresh pair of gloves after handling cash, and I would anxiety spiral about germs until I convinced myself half of Chicago would get corona, and it was my fault because I made a latte with the same gloves I handled money with. And then I would just go home and cry because I knew I had to go back to work the next day. I was amazed every day that the people I was working with seemed so much less affected. I felt shame and guilt with every tear I shed. Every time a fellow employee would say, "How are you?" and I would answer with a semi-honest, "I'm pushing through, how are you?" when what I wanted to say was, "I'm sitting on top of a lot of panic and I can't really breathe." They would give me a look and say, "Well, I'm doing fine." Every time I wanted the floor to open and swallow me whole. Who was I to complain? I had a job. I was employed. I was physically healthy. Suck it up, Buttercup. It wasn't until I had a conversation with my mom one day where I said, "There's just nothing good left," that I realized how mentally unstable this was making me. And then I panicked for another 24 hours before I emailed my supervisor and told her I needed to take a month's leave of absence, effective immediately, because of COVID health concerns, both physically and mental. And just like that, the anxiety dissipated. No, it didn't go away entirely. How could it? The world was either on hold or dying. But I could breathe again, and I could finally go into self-isolation I so desperately craved for my own safety. I read books. I deep cleaned my apartment. I cooked. I did yoga every day. I downloaded TikTok. I rewatched BBC's Sherlock, and I really sat with myself for the first time in ages and asked myself what I truly wanted in this time of uncertainty. And that's when I decided to move from the tightly packed and therefore more dangerous, COVID-wise, Chicago back to my wide-open home state, back to Oklahoma with big skies and open green fields and family. So I emailed my supervisor again and said, "I'm never coming back," only in like a professional way, and began packing up my tiny studio apartment. Now I'm sitting on my family's front porch in Oklahoma, listening to the birds and feeling the warm breeze and looking out at the greenest trees I've ever seen. Of course, COVID is here too. It's everywhere. But here, I'm outside without a face mask on because there's nobody else around for miles. I've gone for long drives without the anxieties of Chicago traffic. I'm looking into an apartment with a garden and spacious walking trails. And the sunsets here are next level. Don't get me wrong, I love a lot of things about Chicago, the theater mostly, closely followed by the unending list of amazing things to do when living in a big city. But that's all on hold right now, and I'm ready to move forward. So here's to long walks with nobody around, to skies bigger than Chicago buildings, to finding peace and a future in a time of fear and uncertainty, to isolation in a place with open air and birds, and not a tiny studio with windows that barely open out into a view of gray skies and buildings. And to my work and COVID and my supervisor and Mr. Extra Hot Almond Milk Chai, thank you for pushing me over the edge and forcing me to take care of myself. I was giving a lot of me to people that didn't deserve it. Thanks for helping me realize that. Lots of love from under the Oklahoma sky.
Wow. What a beautiful story, and what a incredible writer.
Oh,
Jessie
Jessie is top notch. Yeah, she's talented. Like
Man.
in and all of her fingertips, they just ooze it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where she is right now. You know,
Mhm.
I also, the first thing that jumps out at me is that I'm really proud of Jessie, mostly for finally downloading TikTok, because I can't do it still. Like, I have tried, and I'm like, I want to do it because everyone's like looks fun and they're doing it. But I'm really excited, Jessie, that at least that came out of isolation.
It certainly has been a delight for me as a friend, but I can't do it either, so I make her send them to me via text message, which just defeats the whole purpose.
It totally
but
does. Yeah.
both she and some other friends are very good about it. So
That's
thank
funny.
you.
Guys, I don't know if it was the TikTok comment or what, but I think that we have a caller.
What?
Guess what?
Guess what?
Says Jesse's calling in. What? We were just talking about it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Let's see if this works.
Okay.
Oh my god, is it gonna work?
Mm-hmm.
So far, it's
It has
working
to.
better than Ian last week. If you're
Oh, there she is.
yay! Hi Jesse, welcome.
Jessie. Oh,
Hi!
It's so
Oh
cool.
wow, am I doing it right? Can you hear me?
You are. We can see you and we can hear you.
oh.
God bless. Wow, hi you guys!
Hi, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. Really
So
exciting.
cool. What a beautiful story, Jesse. Really, just thank you for your honesty and your humor and your just generosity in, being brave and saying what a lot of people I think are having trouble saying. It looks like, yes?
Yeah, I just want to share some comments. We got, wow, that was beautiful and great piece, so it's really resonating.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's
Yeah.
good.
I mean, as someone who also suffers from anxiety and has, just a lot of challenges in my life with anxiety issues and going through, what I've gone through with this too, I really, what you were saying and how you were saying it really spoke to me.
And I think, Jesse, that you gave a voice to a part of the experience of our essential workers where there has to be so much anxiety about having to go and be exposed. And I think the more that we can shed light on that part of this experience is really important for us to, again, find empathy that when you're in the grocery store line and maybe you're scared, could you just offer a little bit more kindness to that person that's behind that shower curtain or whatever? Because they're putting themselves at risk so you can get your groceries, or in your case, a double chai, whatever.
Correct. Yeah.
Did you find that even though you had some folks that weren't super nice, were there others that were? Do you still have faith in humanity?
I do. I mean, there were definitely some very kind people. But I think the thing that was always surprising to me was people would be incredibly generous with tips, which is so nice, but it would always happen after the person in front of them was completely awful, and they would stand behind and not say anything, but then leave a very generous tip, which, I mean, a very generous tip, that's super helpful, that's great, but I wanted to look at all of them and be like, but what would have actually mattered more is if you had, just said something,
Mm-hmm.
Had empathy to, if you see how it's affecting somebody, just say something, I don't know. But yes, definitely there were incredibly kind people. Every time someone would say, thank you so much for working, that mattered so much. So there was definitely wonderful sides of humanity and shocking sides of humanity every day, yeah.
Do you... something you just said, I find myself pausing on a lot and trying to find the answer to. But when you were saying how, the person behind, didn't necessarily say something, but gave a bigger tip, what do you think it is about us or about those people or if those people are us sometimes too, as humans in those moments? What is keeping us from saying something? Why is it easier for me to give a nice tip to you to try to make up in some way for what just happened versus me saying to you, I'm really so sorry about how that person treated you. I appreciate you. Do you give that any thought?
That's a great question, and that's not something that I had really thought about before, but I think so much of it is probably fear, and I think especially right now, everyone was so wrapped up in their own fear experience that I imagine most people's goals coming into the store was just to get their stuff and leave, or in this case, get a coffee and leave, which, fine. But I think everyone was probably so wrapped up in their own fear that, and I think it's important, and I do it sometimes too, but not to judge how anyone is responding to the fear that they're living in, because everyone's going to respond to fear differently, so that's something I'm trying to give more people grace with myself as like, okay, well, maybe this is just how their system handles fear.
Sure.
So, you know.
But that has to be rough, man, after 8 hours of giving grace to every other customer. Not saying that you shouldn't, and I really commend you for that level of generosity, but I know myself, and I think after a certain time, we all have a level where we're like, I just can't do that anymore. And I really want to thank you for what you did and for doing your best to treat people the way you like to be treated.
I want to share a comment in relation to that. Shane shared, I find it very difficult to search for work right now because of the fact that I'd most likely be jumping right onto the front lines. Your piece perfectly summed up all of the anxiety and fears I have, and I haven't even been in your position. Thank you for putting it out there.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jane. That's really nice. Yeah.
Jesse, what about, if you wouldn't mind just talking about like that moment that you describe in the piece where you sent that communication and you said, I'm not coming anymore. Can you just talk to me about what that was like for you and what happened?
Absolutely. So the one where I officially left forever. So I had a full month of isolation at that point to like be mulling over like both anxiety over going back or anxiety about sending an email saying I'm not going back. Mm-hmm. But I think when I finally made the decision, I felt a lot of relief, but I was always just so afraid of what the response would be from the higher people, because I think that's, well, I don't know if everybody feels that way, but I know I'm such a people pleaser, and like I just want everyone to like me. I didn't want to like ruffle any feathers. And I felt a lot of guilt because I know that a lot of people are looking for work right now, and I was like, you are so fortunate to have a job. So I wrestled with a lot of guilt and anxiety, but when I sent it and when she responded and was actually incredibly kind, I'm so thankful for how she responded. I felt like the biggest weight was lifted from my shoulders. I felt relief like I haven't felt there's like nothing to describe the relief that I felt when I sent it, and then when she was like, great, heard, understood, and was kind about it. So sometimes I still feel kind of guilty when I see people posting about how hard it is to find a job and things like that. But I think, kind of like I said at the end of the piece, like I was just giving so much of myself to something that was like really just not a healthy place for me to be in even before Corona, but then when Corona hit, amplified it. So sometimes there's still that guilt there, but mostly it's just a lot of relief. And sometimes I'll be like going to sleep at night and I'll be like, I never have to go back. I get really happy.
Yeah.
So
What are your, I'm curious, it was interesting earlier today when we were being interviewed on the radio, we were asked a question that I thought, that I hadn't given much thought to, and your piece, makes me think more about it again, which is this idea of, it kind of already starting to feel like we're over some hump, right? States are starting to open up and we're testing out the waters and going back out into the world. Probably a lot of people this weekend and next weekend, it looks like. And this idea, you hear lots of trite phrases thrown around like, oh, the new normal, and you can't go back to the way it was. And, what is your, do you have any hope or do you have faith in, we know you're not going back to that job, right? But for a moment, let's say, you're back in a similar position sometime in the near future, and that guy walks in again, or some people walk in again that are familiar in that role. And do you have faith that all of us going through this right now, that we're going to wind up in a better place or a different place?
Want to. I really want to have that faith. I think, that's actually a really good question, and I feel like there might be some verbal vomiting that happens here while I work through it, so you'll just have to excuse it and just like mumble.
That's going to be our new slogan, verbal vomit.
Perfect, I love it. I think for some people, yes, absolutely, and I think others, I think unfortunately we can see with like the protesters, and I mean in Oklahoma, it's a very conservative state, and there's lots of people that are not being that aren't wearing masks and are gathering in large groups and doing things that I personally wouldn't do. So I think that yes, for sure there are some people that will come out of this, I hope, gentler and kinder and more empathetic, and I think unfortunately others might be just kind of hardened from it or stuck in a certain way, and but I hope that this, again, the term empathy, I hope that those of us who are more empathetic and have even grown more empathetic from this will be able to, just give them some grace, which I'm not great at, but,
Yeah.
give some grace to everybody's experience.
For sure.
Yeah.
What has been some of the more joyful things that you've experienced now that you're back under those skies that you, as Michael talked about, described so beautifully in your piece? What has brought you joy since you've been there?
Definitely being around family has made a big difference. It's so nice to be around people that know you and love you and hold space for you no matter what. I've been reading on our front porch every day, and it's so lovely. It's so nice. It's like for a while you can forget that Corona is a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it never obviously fully goes away, but like I started rereading The Hobbit yesterday, and I was like sitting on my little green front porch, and like it was quiet, and I was reading The Hobbit, and I think finding joy in simple things is really coming to light right now, especially here where it is a simpler living style than I had in Chicago.
Yeah. What's your, given that you, are involved in the Empathy Project now and have come to learn a little bit about, not a little bit, a lot about, what this project means and where it's headed and what it's trying to do. What, if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear what they are on, like theater's importance and theater's role in, focusing everyone a little bit on how important it is to evoke empathy and to feel that there's a space to be heard, and what role the theater really plays, because as I know, that's really what this project is trying to show people.
Absolutely. For me, theater has always been about empathy. Like, that's what I love about theater, is you're seeing people's stories that you might not have ever even given a second thought to, like, or hearing people's point of views that challenge your own, but then are presented to you in a way where you have a conversation about something that you might have brushed aside before. So I think now having this project where that's its sole purpose, like theater does that anyway, but now that there's this project that is its sole purpose, I think this is going to be a really moving and eye-opening and super, super exciting thing. And I can't wait to hear the discussions that come out of it. That's what I'm most excited for, is hearing the discussions and the comments and all of that come from it, and that kind of shared experience.
Because that's the whole point, right? It's It doesn't end when the curtain goes down. Like, the point of it is it filters its way out into your car and your dinner table and your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've always said, if I could, at the end of a performance, if even one person is talking about the show afterwards, at a bar, at a restaurant or something, then, I've done it. Great, I've succeeded.
Yeah, absolutely. Logistically, what that reminds me to mention is, for everyone who is either already planning to attend the Empathy Project on Saturday or thinking about it, the show will run live, and then after the show, we're going to actually have a separate Zoom discussion room set up where audience, writers, artists, everyone involved in the project, from beginning to end, will have their video on, and we can see everyone's faces, and everyone will be unmuted, and there will be a chance to really start those discussions right away. Because, again, as we know, like you said, like it's so nice to go out, people go to a bar or cafe after that and talk. Well, at the moment, we can't do that. So, but we can provide that space, at least in this kind of this virtual space for it. So we will have that logistically to continue the conversation. And then, we would hope, of course, that then people beyond that are continuing those conversations, which is also why where Empathy Radio came from, to help continue those conversations every week. And then volume 2 of the project, which will come next month after we sleep for about a week after Saturday. But yeah, it's I agree with you as a playwright too. If one, I've always said that too. If there was one person like at a bar or coffee shop after that saying, "Man, this play I just saw, like I got to tell you about it was such an interesting conversation," So yeah, and I think that's why we do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Hey, Jesse, if coronavirus all of a sudden, it evaporated and you could do anything, what is the first thing that you would do?
I would get my best friend of 11 years, Sarah, and we would go to Europe because we've wanted to go to Europe for 11 years. And I don't know where we'd get the money, but like if Corona has ended, then we can get the money for it. Do you know So we would go to Europe and have a beautiful time. That's what we would do.
That's so cool.
That's awesome, man.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Guess what?
What?
We have another caller.
We do.
What?
We do.
Jesse, are you cool if we bring someone on with us?
Yeah,
Who's
sure.
watching and who I think it looks like it's Shane. Is it Shane?
Oh,
so Shane's
Shane.
the one who commented before that Rachel was reading his comment from Troy Foundry.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Very cool.
let's bring Shane on. I haven't talked to Shane in so long.
Awesome.
I've only talked to Shane via email, so
Oh.
that'd be so nice.
Yay! Hey Shane! Oh, you're connecting to audio. Hey! Good to see
Can
you,
you
man.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I just gotta mute you guys on Facebook.
Oh, right, so we don't echo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. It's so
Oh,
good to
what's
see
going
you.
on?
Thanks for joining us. This is
There
so
we go.
exciting. Thanks for calling in, man.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Oh, that's really cool. What gave you the impulse to call in?
I mean, anybody talking about theater in such a wild time,
Yeah.
I just love to hop in on the conversation.
Yeah. What was it you were saying in the comments that there was a lot about Jesse's story that really spoke to you?
Yeah, it was a lot to do with the anxiety and fear I have about being on the front lines. Before this all happened, I was working in a theater at box office, a not very closed off box office, not a very boxy box office.
Yeah.
And then I was let go, furloughed. And, with unemployment, you usually have to be looking for work.
Yeah.
So doing that job search with a wife at home that is kind of at risk, she's got very bad asthma, like just the thought of getting a job, going out there, coming home, and just the concept
Yeah.
of getting her so sick that she's put in a hospital, just so your piece, like talking about that fear of being and just having to deal with that anxiety at work and just not really having a place to escape to other than like the employee restroom.
Mm.
Yeah, I've been there, so it's terrifying right now. I can't imagine being an essential worker
Yeah.
and an essential worker.
Right.
Yeah.
If you need your double shot latte, go ahead and come in.
Right.
And I think it's like I get it, but then it's like, can there be an extra level of care then
Right.
with the people that you come in contact with? Sometimes
Right.
if I order takeout, I really want to make sure that person knows, like, I'm grateful that you went to work today, and I'm grateful that you came to my door with this food, and I don't want that to ever go unsaid, or you know what I mean? So we want to support local business and all of that, but can we do so with that just little bit of care?
Hmm.
Right. And that was something in regard to that whole, like, the takeout thing. Something that was so shocking to me was the other day when Jess and I every week have been trying to, when we do take out, order from a local business. And one of our delivery drivers the other day made it a point to, like, thank me for the tip that I left. It just took me aback. It was like, first off, great, of course, that's not a problem. But it made me think, are you not getting that many tips? Like, I would hope in a time like this that you're, like, getting a generous tip,
Sure.
but maybe not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully they were getting lots of good
Yeah.
tips, but I don't know. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
Well, and I know just from my job, anytime anyone showed even like an ounce of kindness, I was like, thank you so much. And I would like go out of my way to thank them, because when you have people yelling at you in the middle of a pandemic, like, if someone is kind to you, it means more than it would any other time, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's I mean, goes back to a question I asked before, which is like a question / concern I have, being the least optimistic person in the room, let's say. What is it? What is it that right now is bringing out this extra level of kindness in those moments? This extra, for those of us doing that, for those of us, taking that moment and doing that, and seeing it happen around us, and what is causing that right now to feel like easier or like more kind of okay to do? And then secondly, like, I'm so afraid that 6 months down the road, we're kind of back where we started, where the latte guy comes in and it's the same behavior, and we're upset we're pissed off at the person in front of us at the grocery store for not being ready to pay, or whatever it is, right? I guess I'm looking for the ant, like, I'm looking for the solution. What do we have? What's happening now that we have to recognize and hold on to keep that going in times where there is no pandemic that's affecting us all?
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's the holiday season effect. Like, every time the holiday season rolls around, everybody feels that need to be extra generous, and now is the time I have to be like a good person and have to be empathetic and sympathetic with all these people around me. There's a new refreshed sense of brotherly and sisterly love, but like, is it, I don't know, like, that it feels similar to that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I also wonder that this is, and this is not my own thought, that I've read this, that there is something about the coronavirus that is the great equalizer, in that it doesn't have a one place that it goes. It can affect all of us. And so even though there's this sense of disconnection, there is this odd global thing that it's not just happening to one group or a specific place, it's happening to all of us. And I wonder that if we could connect more to that unity, if that outside of the pandemic, that if we could remember how one we were within this, that doesn't go away when the pandemic goes away. We are all still one.
And that's my question, is what is it that's keeping us in times that are not this time from recognizing that connection that we're somehow able to recognize pretty easily right now? What changes between this moment, where we can easily recognize that, to 4 months ago, or possibly 6 months in the future, where we're like screaming at each other on the street again?
Yeah.
I wonder, and this might be a pessimistic or scary way of looking at things, but if it is the fear, if it goes back to the fear that everyone is in this kind of fight or flight thing, and I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I have an end to that sentence, but just I don't know if that's a part of the connecting thing, is that everyone is afraid, and so
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I happen to completely agree, and I'm then curious, what is it that we're afraid of? Because right now, when that fear is, which I agree, right? It's the fear, right? So, but right now, when we're all kind of like going, I know you're afraid because I'm afraid too, so I'm going to be extra nice, and we're all like acknowledging that fear right now, and everybody's pretty okay with it. Like, I'm noticing that, like, no one's looking at me different because I'm like being extra nice and admitting that we're all afraid. So what keeps us from? What's the guard that's up? Like, what are we? It's a weird way to say it, right? But like, what are we afraid of being afraid of? Or what are we afraid of people seeing us afraid? What is that? And I know I'm like asking for like big, huge answers to big philosophical questions here, but I feel like that's the fear of the fear. Like, what is? It doesn't seem so. I don't know. It doesn't seem so difficult to me, but it's like the most difficult thing that exists.
Oh man, I had something and then I think I lost it. But it's similar to me with why we go to the theater. Let me see if I can do this. When we go to the theater and I see the person on stage, and I'll use anger as an example, like, oh wow, I have that inside of me too. That by me, the catharsis I go through with all those other people leads me to a place of understanding of myself. And then that leads me to a place of acceptance. Like, I have anger or I have fear, that I've accepted that. I think in a way that we all have sort of done right now is said, everyone can be afraid, so now I'm allowed to be afraid. And then, because I accept that in myself, I can recognize that in that other person. It's like this step thing that we go through that we try to do in theater to get us all to a place of empathy, which is understanding. I see me in you. Is that?
Yeah.
Are we onto it?
I think we are.
You answered it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, end of the world has been.
I'm going to stir the pot a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Rachel.
I want to add something that Ian mentioned, which I think maybe adds a little nuance to this conversation, where he can't Zoom at the moment, but a follow-up on Emily's statement. While in theory it's affecting everyone equally, communities of color and other minority communities are actually being hit a lot harder by this thing. The mortality rate is much higher among them, not to be the totally depressing downing for you. So I think there is something to that nuance of, like, not quite equal.
Yes.
And it's bringing out that more than ever.
That we've been told we're all in this together. What we're talking about today, we've been told we're all in this together, but in actuality,
We're not.
I don't feel. Yes.
That's true.
Right, like I think the phrase that's been going around that somehow does that is like we're not all in the same boat. We're in the same ocean, but we're in what is it?
We're not all in we're in the same storm,
But we're in different
not
boats.
in the same boat.
Yeah, we're not in the same boat. We're in the same storm. Yeah.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah. No, thanks, Ian.
Something that also kind of goes hand in hand in this. I see another comment about like how there was a similar effect after 9/11, but it didn't last. And something that's been kind of getting to me, and I can't remember if it was brought up last week with Ian or not, but just the language that's used to talk about everything that's going on, and like calling it the fight against Corona and the battle and our heroes on the front line. And like I'm even guilty of using the front line
Sure.
terminology, but like
Military.
there's all of that we as a country tend to band together when we are unifying a fight against something. And yes, COVID is something that needs to get taken down, but like it's a medical thing. There's a medical process. It is not a war. There are not necessary deaths, and that's the thing that goes hand in hand with making it a war, making it a battle that people are going to die, and that's just fine. And that is something that I've been trying to like cope with. While I'm sitting here with my dog, not doing much of anything to help that fight. And I don't know. I'll be listening to an ad on the radio in the car that like says something like battling, like just could use a different word, just
Right.
slight change in terminology, and I feel
Yeah.
much better about this ad. I feel a little bit better about our future.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I couldn't agree
kind of
more.
related, and I just
No,
wanted
it
to
is.
throw that out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I, as Rachel certainly knows, and a lot of other people I've worked with in the past, language is something that I'm very focused on all the time too. And I think you really hit the nail on the head, because for me, it feels like not only are we a lot of us using the either the wrong or not the best terminology, like you're pointing out, this whole military kind of, antagonistic language. I often feel like, especially when we're hearing that language coming from either our leaders or the media or people in positions of influence or power, that and I'm sure I'm not telling anyone here anything that we don't already know, but like it's very intentional, right? It's intentional when it's coming from those folks, because it's meant to divide and get everyone on one side who those who oppose that kind of language and war, and those who don't, and if we can do that, especially at a time like now that we're going through, we can keep people from banding together to challenge how it's being handled. And that, for me, along with what you're saying, Shane, is so frustrating to me, because I see it, every day on the news, and every day, coming from certain groups and certain conversations, and it's so obvious, it does work. That's the real problem, is that it works, right? Because people believe what they hear, especially in these days of social media, and we're just hit with this stuff constantly. The first thing someone hears is the thing that they believe. Mm-hmm. And it's harder for the second person to come around and challenge that, because everyone is taught now to believe that headline they saw on Twitter.
First thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw another comment into the mix and see how everyone on the call reacts to this. From Robin Parsons, we have to take time for silence and for gratitude. If we don't, it will be like this never happened. And my question is, what does everyone on the call think? Does everyone on the call think that's happening, and to what degree? You just mentioned being inundated by social media. Are we taking that time, do you feel, or do you feel that we're sort of numbing? That's my question.
Yeah. What do you guys think, Jesse or Shane?
I think that it's hard, because in isolation, you would think that you would have a lot of time to sit quietly, but all the world, myself included, downloaded TikTok, and I scroll for hours to try to ignore the
silence.
scary things in the world, and I definitely try to sit with gratitude and with thoughts, but I mean, eventually, I find myself, just when I think about it too much, and maybe this is good, bad, or indifferent, but I start to just spiral, and I quick move on to distract myself with something,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Shane?
I think gratitude-wise, and then, you guys know this, I in my piece, I kind of wrote about how I struggle with kind of feeling that gratitude for everything that's going on, because right now, in this little box, things are great, and I think now I've started to accept that, and I'm feeling a gratitude. But when it comes to silence, it's so hard because of all this social media, and I would really love to just shut it all off and say, I'm not, for the rest of the quarantine, for the rest of all of this, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to have Facebook. I'm not going to have Instagram, whatever. But in my particular profession, as a professional actor, I have to consistently be promoting what's going on with Troy Foundry, with myself, whatever it may be. So I have to have that presence. Yeah. And that kind of requires me to scroll through each day to just see what are my other artist friends going on. And in the process, there are other, here are other things that pop up that deal with the madness of the outside world. So silence, that part's tough, but gratitude, I think I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And I think we're, as a whole, getting there.
You do. That's cool.
I think that the gratitude for me comes from such a drastic shift in perspective that all of a sudden the things that I really, really took for granted in my life, and I take for granted a lot because you do, am now so much more aware of and feel more grateful for. And I think that's an essential part of trying to find our way through this. And in terms of silence, I think I find myself in different days and in different times I overfunction, and I create this sort of facade of structure that doesn't exist, you know? And then I somehow can, like, my ego can rest on that because I'm like, well, I'm really doing a lot, you know? And then, but when you go to sleep at night, you know, that, like, moment before you close your eyes, you can't hide from yourself. So I go back and forth, and I do well some days, and then I don't on others.
Yeah, I mean, as I know, Rachel knows for sure. So the shortest possible version of this story is the day before it all kind of hit its peak, right? And as a country, we went into like, oh, yesterday was fine and today is not. Like everybody remembers when that was, like mid-March. As everyone knows, the Outer Loop does work in Tanzania, the Humanity Project, and I had been planning for 2 months for our next trip, and my trip was I was supposed to fly out on March 16th, and which is the day, right? So you know, it's like it's gearing up, and it's not like it's where everybody's still unsure how bad it's going to be, and so for some reason I had still decided it was going to be okay to go, and no one around me had really said, you know. It just didn't seem that intense, right? So I get to the airport on the morning of the 16th. My bags are checked. My bags are on the plane. They're getting ready to start boarding. And something, I've called Rachel and I've said, see ya in a few months. I'm going. And yep, bye. And something, they're like, pick up the microphone to start boarding. And something in my head goes, hey, is this a good idea? And I text Rachel and I said, "What are your thoughts on like me not going right now?" And
at the gate?
she's like, "Aren't you at the gate?" And she calls me. She's like, "What? Like, what's going on?" And she's like, "Yeah, no. If you get that feeling, like, don't do it, right?" So, longer story shorter, I have to go. I have to be that person who goes to the gate agent and says, "My bags are on the plane. I've chosen not to go. Can you get them off?" Right, and thankfully in that moment that person was extremely gracious and totally understood and was like, no problem, get your bags off. Bags get off, I go back, I don't go, right? Fast forward to I get back to Albany, I then get on a plane to get back to DeKalb to get back to Rachel before things get nuts, right? But then over the next week, I go into a huge depression. Like huge, right? The loss of the trip and what those trips are for us and for me and what we go through and what we do when we're there. Like a 3-month trip has just been ripped away at the last minute. I didn't gradually approach that decision. It was just, whoop, nope. Now, and I'm sitting in an apartment in DeKalb 24 hours after I was going to be in Tanzania in a village, 8 hours outside the city. And there were 3 or 4 day stretches where I didn't get out of bed, because I could not imagine what I was going to do. The next 3 months of my life had been planned out to a T. The next year, really, but definitely the next 3 months. So this whole story to get to the idea of, the silence and the it's okay to pause for a minute and to recognize that just because something was planned for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and now you have to sit and kind of reevaluate what is important to you right now and who are you with and what are you going to do with the circumstances that you're now given, really took me like a good couple of weeks of silence and of not allowing a lot of noise in to figure that out. but then of course, we figure things out, and now we have 4 shows a night, a week, and we're doing this empathy project thing, and now I'm not sleeping, not because I'm depressed, but just because I don't have time. So right, it's this interesting. Right, there's so much to do. I've never been busier. So it's such a strange issue that there doesn't seem to be. I don't have the answer. Right, it just it's hard to find that balance.
Well, I think we all kind of learned in our own way, too, that there was a sort of grief process during all of this.
Yeah.
Whether we lost a job, lost someone,
Yeah.
lost whatever plan
Yep.
was in place. Like,
Yeah.
there was a time that we all needed to take to grieve.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How are we doing over there? We good? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's well, I thought I was getting a look like.
No, I
like
just that felt like the right thing to end it on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I felt that like in my chest. I was like, yeah, that's the thing I needed to hear.
yeah, we got this look from Rachel, and now we understand what it is.
Yeah.
Like, just end it there. That was it. Shane closed the show.
That's
That
what
was
it
it.
was. Like,
Yeah.
please don't. Yeah.
No, I agree, Shane. That was really well summed up and
Yes.
put, and I think we've all felt that, and like Emily was saying at the beginning about what the Empathy Project is trying to do. Maybe, hopefully, like, grief is one of those things that crosses other boundaries that maybe we can all on each side of things maybe understand we're all feeling at the
Yes.
same time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for calling in and chatting with us. This was an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Like, this is why we do it. Yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for your beautiful, both of you, your beautiful stories and,
Yeah.
and your bravery and your generosity with sharing and for being involved in this project. And we're looking forward to seeing you later this week.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. Cool.
Very excited.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you both.
Thank you both.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah.
Give that doggy a little pet for us.
Yeah.
Oh, I will.
Cool. That wasn't. Oh man, what a I'm full again.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was such a wonderful conversation. We're really grateful to Jesse and Shane for calling in.
Absolutely. And for our commenters too,
Yeah.
you know that we have to expand the conversation and remind each. I just am
Yeah.
very grateful for that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we feeling like we need to address anything else over there, or we're good?
No, we're good. We got a thank you from Ian. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, that's nice. Thank
and
you,
my mom
Ian.
wants to know if I'm a producer, so yes, Mom.
Yes, Mom. Diane. Yes, Diane. Rachel is now a producer as well.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Ian, for
Mhm.
being one of our most loyal supporters and followers, and always willing to jump in and help us out
Yes.
with things. And thanks, Diane, for watching.
Mhm.
Thank you all for watching.
Yes.
We'll be back next Sunday, same time, same place. And just one last reminder, probably by tomorrow or the next day, all of the seats will be gone for the Empathy Project on Saturday. So get them if you want them.
Yeah.
If you need any more information, just shoot us a message through Facebook or our website. And other than that, I guess we'll see you, if not Saturday, then next Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.